Welcome to the No Love Podcast, where we decrease tomorrow's divorce rate today by teaching singles and couples alike how to experience love on purpose and not by chance. I'm your host, Edward L. Fairley, accompanied by my wonderful co-host, Michelle Larkin. Michelle, say hi to the people.
Well, good evening. How are you?
Carlos, hurry up already. That's how you feel?
Good evening. Woo. Thank God for no love. That's all I got to say. Thank God.
Amen.
No love.
I pray
Amen.
that is the sentiments of the people when they tune in. Speaking of tuning in, you're kind of like one of my current events who I go to for current events. So what's going on? How you been? What you been up to? We took a bye week last week for necessary purposes, and so we're back this week. So what's going on? What you been up to? Where's your mind at? Feelings, thoughts, anything you want to share?
I'm taking my own advice in that one of the things that I share with people from a coaching standpoint is how to manage overwhelm, how to get clear, and how to make good decisions. And in light of the past week in general and just the past week personally, it's been an exercise in, again, thank God for no love, tapping into what I've learned and what I know to be true, to combat the onslaught of information that wants to undo that or overwhelm that or distract from that. And so it's been, and even like in little things, like I had to let somebody go today. And so just the weight of little things and big things together has made me have to be more reflective. But at the same time, just got off the phone with my mom, who's a preacher. Grateful. We were just talking about how grace is a wonderful thing and how change is a necessary part of progress. And she had lived through the 60s and the civil rights. And she said, we're right back where we were. And I marched back then, and I don't have a problem with marching it. And that was just very comforting to me that we're part of a cycle. We're not out of control. We are part of a cycle, and that comforted me. But I have to say, this week has been an exercise in tapping into no love and like knowing love the epitome of love, right? So love past my circumstances, past my reality, past what I think, to what is unconditional, and just being able to sit sometimes. I did a lot, I have to say, to combat that. And my process of that self-discipline is meditating and sitting somewhere and just stop for a second. Just stop for a second. It does not a whole day, not, but just a few minutes to just be silent. And it's been very helpful. So a lot of things. I feel a lot of things, but I am managing what I'm feeling.
Feeling from anything in particular? Where's your source of feeling coming from? What have you been focusing on?
Also, my heart breaks over the news of racism in America. My heart has broken over some decisions I've had to make professionally about letting someone go in the midst of a pandemic and a crisis, and now your job is gone. Their responsibility, because they should have performed, so I'm not even going to go there. But still, just the weight of having to make that type of decision, knowing that it's impacting someone's life. But a blessing in that, again, being able to tap into no love, was I had to have that conversation, and I had to let them go. But they came back to my office afterwards and said, hey, can we talk? And I encouraged them that this is part of your journey. In the blip on a large scale of your life, you will look at this as a moment and not something that, it could have been a moment that defined you, but it's not your whole life. So don't let this be the determining factor of who you are. It's something that you learned. And that ability to have that conversation and to testify to somebody about how I've overcome crazy moments that could have defined me in a negative way. But that's love, right? Like, that's looking past and seeing the person. Like, I see you. I see what happened, but I also see you, and I want you to leave here more whole than hurt. And even in that whole notion again is my lane, right? So I'm not on the front lines. I'm not out in the street protesting about what's going on, but in the lane that I have, my intent is to leave people, even in crisis, more whole than hurt. And it's my contribution to change.
Question. I hope this doesn't sound insensitive. Was a layoff because of performance or because of?
No.
Oh, okay.
So that's why I said I'm saying that they contributed to that.
Yeah.
They contributed to that. But the empathetic part of me is like, you did this, but it's gonna hurt.
Yeah.
It's gonna hurt because you're gonna be struggling for a minute unless you. I just know this person wasn't prepared. So you're gonna struggle, and I don't want this struggle to define you as a failure. I want this struggle to make you stronger because you did some things and made some decisions that put you in this situation. But it doesn't have to be where you stay, which is what I left her with, was because she felt like she let me down, and the mentorship relationship was something that was important to her. And I was like, well, yeah, you did let me down. Let me not step away from that truth. You did, and I'm taking the fall for this, 100%. But at the same time, I'm gonna survive because I saw this coming, and I've done what I needed to do to take responsibility for this. But I need you to do the same. I need you to survive and take responsibility for this and move forward.
Most certainly, I agree. I like it. I love it. Man, what she said, I have Ms. Lisa, she said others are watching with you. All right, so let's start with me. For all of you who know me, I haven't seen any videos. I'm extremely disconnected, intentionally disconnected. But the crazy thing about it, the crazy and sad thing about it is I still know what's going on. Because unfortunately, like what you just stated, is we're in cycles. But I haven't seen any videos. I don't know any names. It's actually, I think it was 3 days after riots and stuff had happened that I actually found out that there were riots and stuff happening, and the reason why. To some people that is crazy to them. Some people, they're like, where are you? Disconnected. I'm like, yeah, probably. Yeah, okay. But what's going on right now is a lot of people that are very, very emotional, frustrated, angry, every kind of thought process that you can have. My mom calls, talks to my daughter and stuff about the stuff. Some people try to talk to me about it, and I'm like, it's not really anything you can tell me. But that actually is why we're going to go over this show today. So what's going on in the world, though I know it indirectly and probably directly, this still needs to be discussed. But it also helps me to realize that I am living on purpose and in purpose, because nothing about what my agenda is changing. I'm still on target to do what I'm supposed to do, because in the grand scheme of things, no love is to prevent and to be a solution to all that's going on. So I'm going to continue in this. Nothing about my life has changed. If anything, it has caused my focus to be more sharp and laser pointed, and to make sure that the tools and stuff that we are creating here in No Love are produced and brought to fruition at a faster pace. But nothing about my thought process has changed. Nothing about
I think that's what I'm saying. It's like everyone has a role to play in investing in the solution, right? Like if we all have a thumbprint that we're supposed to leave on the planet. Like we have our thumbprint. We have our uniqueness, and your uniqueness is, and it was always global. Like the thought of knowing love in a way that saves marriages and relationships one at a time is change. And it's not comfortable. Anybody who's listened to this for any length of time knows that the internal struggle that comes from dealing with some of these conversations is not comfortable. Change is not comfortable. But the
This
change
show
is
is gonna
worth
be
it.
uncomfortable.
But the change is
Speaking of that,
worth it. It's worth that.
it's definitely worth it.
Investment.
And this show is gonna be uncomfortable. So disclaimer, it's gonna be an uncomfortable show, but we gotta get uncomfortable to get comfortable. This is gonna be interesting. So it's not gonna be set up like the others have been, or the format that we.
I have a storm brewing outside, so I just need to go and move some things so they don't fall off the porch. So I will be right back.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a great idea. So while she's doing that, before she comes back, so I can kind of lay the foundation of this particular show. My heart is with the family of this young man. I honestly don't know the name. I don't know what I know what I've been told has happened. I will not watch what happened, and be perfect. I don't even understand how, based on what I've been shared, you can watch the entire video of something like that. I wouldn't even allow for my subconscious to watch something like that. So I'll just trust that that's what's going on, and feel that it's horrible that it happened, and it's unjust for any person to go through anything anywhere near that. Unfortunately, it's not anything that people of color haven't been through, or the worst that people of color have been through. So that's the unfortunate thing, and that's what's causing all of the turmoil and the riots and all the other things that are going on in the world. With that being said, again, this is going to be a different from our typical format. It will not be 3 bullets. We're just pretty much going to have some interesting conversation. Yeah, we're going to have some dialogue, because we have to figure out how we can get through these times, and why no love is so important. So what I'm going to do is, first I'll start with the topic. The topic, I think I changed it before I even start. Yeah, started. So I titled it "Love's Hiding Place." Love's hiding place is today's topic. So if I was to word it differently, I would say this is where love tends to go and hide. This is why it's oftentimes missed, not seen, or whatever. And also, I'm going to tell y'all pretty much everything we're going to talk about first. So if it was the 3 points, everything's going to be talked about. Yeah, it's going to be thrown up all at once, and then we're going to go back and just talk about different examples of what that looks like. Okay, so first I'm going to give you the hiding place of love. The hiding place, which is the answer. The hiding place of love is in context. Love hides in context. CONTEXT. Love hides in context. There's many definitions of context. So I'll read a couple. One is the set of circumstances or facts that surround a particular event or situation. It's also the parts of a written or spoken statement that precede or follow a specific word or passage, usually influencing its meaning or effect, i.e. context, bringing things into context. Now, context, us as people, just the human race, not the black race, white race, any kind of race, us as people, human race, we look at things from our context. We learn things from our individual context. And we do and we respond from our individual context. Now, the reason why love is failing is because we fall short at or in the way that we just straight up fall short. We fall short in teaching from our context. And this is where everything goes downhill. Because if we are learning from our context, is that a storm that got you looking like that?
Oh, turn the camera off. I'll turn the camera off and let you keep talking.
If we are learning from our context, and if we are speaking or responding from our context, and if we are looking at things from the viewpoint of our context, yet we're not teaching what our context is, everything is getting misconstrued. Everything. If you're not being understood and people aren't responding according to your context, or they're responding according to your context, but your perspective does not align with how they're responding, everything is going to go into crap, for lack of a better term. So what we're going to do is what No Love typically does, and that's indirectly teach us to start looking at things through the lens of context. So I'm gonna start with what kind of triggered this. Me and Tila. Actually, yeah, she's here watching now. Hey, Tila. Her and I, we were on one of our many week. We have these talks where it might go from 10:30 to 3 o'clock in the morning, and we'll just be talking about anything from religion to children, parenting, relationships, anything. And I think it was Tuesday. I think it was Tuesday night going into Wednesday. That was one of our, we just rapping till 3 in the morning nights. And as we were conversing, we got on the topic of, because I was telling her about, like, right now working real hard on my with my kids about getting their portfolios, stocks and stuff in order, understanding the stock market, investing, and we're working on business plans and how to look at them and things of that nature. That's what we're working on here in my household. So with my 7-year-old son, my 13-year-old daughter, and we're talking, and I think we got on we were on the topic of like, my daughter several months ago, her bed broke, and she was asking me about me purchasing the bed, and I told her that the bed was underway, and she said, where did I get it from? And I said, I don't know where I bought the bed from. I said, my daughter needed the bed, so I told her to look up a bed, find it, and send me the link, and I'm just gonna pay for the bed or whatever. And she said, well, wait, what? You don't know where your money is going to, where the location is? I said, no, that's not my job. The reason why I had her do the research and find the bed is because I didn't want to waste my time looking for something that she needs. She needs the bed. I don't need the bed. But I do need to make sure that she has a bed as her father. And we got on that. We went off on a tangent on that conversation, but then she ended it with, well, I wouldn't do that with my son because he'd probably go and find the most expensive bed and send me a link. And I'm like, I'm not paying for all that. And I laughed, but the underlying reason why I would not be worried about my daughter is because of the context of our relationship. And what I mean by that is, and this is another thing that we talked about. I said, well, my daughter, she understands money. She knows the bills inside the household. And like, my daughter, I've actually had to get on her about thinking about my wallet or my pockets, because she won't get something because she's saying it costs too much. Or we've been out, like, she had to get like a jumpsuit for a step show, and I had to, we couldn't find it anywhere. And we finally found the jumpsuit that met the actual characteristics of what they were looking for. And she was like, well, we need to keep on looking. I'm like, yeah, we've been in 5 stores. We just found the daggone thing. And she's like, I said, why? She said, it's too much. She said, I think she was like, it was $40. I'm like, 40. I said, hey, don't count my coins. I said, if you need the daggone jumpsuit, let's get the jumpsuit. But the reason why she thinks that way is because my daughter knows how much our mortgage is. My daughter knows how much the light bills are. My daughter knows how much groceries cost. My daughter knows how much the water bill is. My daughter knows how much all this stuff is. Now, I'm pretty sure there's people listening right now that's saying, she don't need to know all that. That's grown folks' business. But let's go back to context. This is what we're talking about here today, right? So, because Tila and I were talking about, she said, well, my son knows how much the light bills and stuff are. I said, now, that's cool. But my daughter also knows the income that's coming in the house. And she was like, well, I ain't tell him all that. That's when she kind of went back. I said, all right, so that's cool and everything. And I kind of get why you wouldn't want him to know your salary or whatever. But if he does not know how much you make, how does he have something to reference whether something is expensive or not? If he just knows that the light bill is $170, but he doesn't know how much you make and how much you have to work to make sure that that $170 is affordable, there's absolutely no context as to why he thinks that you're struggling or money is tight for this week, or he's going to be considerate of your coins. And then you respond, these kids are ungrateful. They have this entitlement issue. They have whatever, when if all we're doing is buying them what they want and they have no context or no contrast as to what value is, then there's no need for them to think that I should pull back on asking for this, or I shouldn't ask about this field trip. Since my daughter has something to compare and contrast, she understands the context of the value of things to where she is saying, well, I know the daycare is $165 a week. They pay $150 for groceries. They pay this for the light bill. They pay this for the mortgage. They pay this for that. And now I'm going to come and ask for $40. She's like, that's too much. That's where that came from. It came from context. That's where consideration comes from. It comes from context. It comes from understanding. So we get frustrated and upset about different things about kids and entitlement. But if they don't have any kind of reference, all they have is their assumption. And their assumption is lights gonna be on. Me and my son, we just were having that conversation. Because I said, what are your priorities? I said, when you see me and mommy go to work in the morning, go to our office, and we're working, when we're working at that time, we are earning a wage. The wage in turn pays for the lights that you're experiencing, the FGTV YouTube thing that you like to watch. Every time you ask me to get a game and I say yes, I'm using money. Remember when daddy asked you, where's the money for the ice cream that you asked for? And you went to your piggy bank and you gave me $1 and I just turned my head and went to sleep because I told you that it's not enough. I said, well, that money came from us working. Said, so what do you do that is considered work to earn what it is that you have? He said, well, I got homework. I have reading. I said, well, if you notice, me and mommy, we work first and then we play with you all. Enjoy through TV, entertainment, whatever. I said, we're working first. So do you work first and then play, or do you? And then he was like, So now, because we've been going through this whole prioritizing business and getting their finances and stuff in order and understanding money, he's waking up and he's reading first and then finding out whatever his homework is. And then later on, after he's finished that, he's playing. He has context now. We're talking about plans, preparing and before we actually attack different things. So again, going into context. I know you all might be saying, well, what does this have to do with love? As everything to do with love. And we're going to get there, but I just need you all to hear these little stories and anecdotes to understand why context is so important, because this is where we slack at. This is where we're lazy at. This is where we're failing at in our respective relationships. Another good example, speaking of me and my wife going to our different respective offices. I remember when I used to call her from the actual brick and mortar building and ask her how her day is, and she's like, oh, well, I had to type in, because she does the billing for the Orthopedic Associates company. So I had to type in like $74,000 worth of work today. And I'm like, oh, okay. You know what I mean? Like, is that bad? Is that good? Are you doing a lot? Like, what are you? Okay, I don't know what to do. Like, it'd be silence. And she I could sense she's frustrated that I don't feel bad or empathize with 74,000, but she's not taking the time to articulate what it is that means. But now that we're working home together, and I see the stacks of what $74,000 or
what $74,000 represents.
Exactly. I have context, and when she gives me those numbers, now I'm like, yo, all right, so today I'll do whatever you typically would do. I got you. Don't even worry about it. You just go ahead and work on that. So because of my context, came my consideration, my empathy, all of those things that my daughter has when she's considering me spending something for an outfit for her, because she has context of where the money is coming from through this spending. So there's a lot of times we have prideful issues, and we don't share things out of pride or where we were taught this grown folks business or whatever, and we're missing out on hot opportunities for us to provide our children with context or even things to show and prove that we actually care. So we're going to give some more examples, because this is going to be just an example-filled show to help you all put your minds around context. And we're going to get into more sensitive topics while we're doing so. So let's talk more context. So my daughter, she has a YouTube page. My daughter does miming, okay? And it gets a whole bunch of traction with her miming. So a couple of weeks ago, probably about a month ago, I got a comment on one of her posts. It was from a Caucasian guy, and it says, again, my daughter mimes. For those who don't know what miming is, it's when they put on white paint on their face and they don't express audibly through their words. It's like they can't speak, but they express themselves to where a message is relayed through their movement, their body movement, and their facial expressions, okay? So under one of the performances where they ministered, it was a Caucasian person that put, why is it so wrong for children to want to wear blackface when I see children in church wearing whiteface all the time? Now, I can tell you right now, some of you all who are listening who are of African-American descent immediately got offended when I just read that actual message. Didn't bother me at all. This was my response. I said, great and fair question. Answer, whiteface paint for miming goes as far back as mid 400 BC. And it was and is used to help the audience be able to see the performer's facial expressions from far away. Blackface was created to depict and mimic people of color, not in a positive manner on Caucasian programs. Blackface was also used to represent a character of color in an entertainment program in order to avoid actually putting a person of color on the air and giving them employment as a representation of themselves. So that was my response. That was my response. My response was context. Did I hear anything else from the person after that? Not at all. But I provided them with context. Whether their intent was malice when they shared or not, honestly, I don't care. Nor does it matter. But I took an opportunity to educate someone as opposed to getting offended and attacking someone. And I was able to give context. And this is typically, I can tell you right now, people usually share a whole bunch of stuff. Even though the truth might feel bad, it's never a place of judgment, which is why so many people are willing to share different stuff with me. It's interesting that I say this since we're on the topic of race. So I was working with a developer of mine yesterday. And we're up talking about the program that we're working on right now and just what's going on. And he's from Tennessee, Caucasian male, and he said like the issue that I have, and it's like I sense a you people behind it. The issue I have is I think it's like taken out of proportion. He said people die from police, whether they're black, white, or whatever, quite often. And I'm like, valid, true. He said, actually, he said, I'm not trying to be offensive or anything, but I have this poll or this statistic that shows that I forgot the number that he said. This number of white people have been killed by police officers within the last year, and this number of black people were killed in the last year, and the white people's number was higher than that of the black people. And I said, that's very interesting. I said, now I want you to tell me the context of those numbers. And he said, huh? I said, tell me the context of those numbers. I said, those Caucasians that were killed, was it in a mass shooting? I don't know. I said, were they shooting back and forth with police from a big bust or whatever, and that's what caused people to die? Was it by accident? Or where they were trying to shoot a victim and they missed and they hit? And he's like, I don't know. I said, okay. All right. I said, okay. What about the population of Caucasian? I said, if you have a higher number from a population standpoint of anything, more than likely you're going to have a higher number of population with other things. I said, so what if we did that in percentages? If we add the population, the entire population of Caucasians, which I believe is around 49% in the United States, and the population of African American descent is 13%. I said, what are the percentages? Is it a lot of white people? Or I said, see, because oftentimes people will present percentages and then they'll present numbers, and there's a motive typically or intent behind how it's presented. So without what we're talking about today, context, things can be skewed a little bit, couldn't they? And it will cause you to have your specific feelings and your thought processes and things of that nature, and that kind of throws things off. Nicely put. Tila said, cousin, Sharnice, how you doing, love? Hello, it says. So I started talking about different things, and I said, I'm not gonna go here, but I just want you to see and understand the context of this. So I said the census, I gave those percentages, 49% are Caucasian male as of 2018. And I said, I just did a random check or search. 2018, 49%. 13% black. And I said, but what if we did that about welfare? you would get a high percent of people for African American for welfare. But what if I switch the numbers and say, let's tell the numbers of people that are in Caucasian percent versus the percentage? What number would be higher? The Caucasian number is going to be higher if I go with numbers, because it's a pool of a bigger amount of people, and the percentage of the African American descent is going to be lower. So if I present numbers, then you're going to feel uncomfortable. See, when you start manipulating the context, you easily get a different view of what's going on.
Change your perception.
Perception. So if we don't talk context, we're never going to ever relate to each other. We're never going to ever empathize with one another. We're never going to get to a place where we can work together, love one another, look at each other as individuals. We'll never be able to get to that place. This is why context is so important, because I can, that's why I don't get all emotional about stuff that's presented to me, because I'm thinking about a whole bunch of other things that are not being presented or talked about when it's shown to us. I said, and he said, so he said that bothered me. I said that's true. Oh, this was my actual response to my that statement when he talked about black people. I said, now that you shared that whites have more people that have died from police than blacks, why is it that we see more black deaths or killings on TV than we see y'all? Mm-hmm. And he got silent. Said, so how is the presentation of crime and things so much more for us than it is you all? If things are equal or about the same or about more or whatever, I said there's clearly an intention. There's intentionality about how things are presented. And again, listen to what I'm saying. These are things that I'm saying with confidence without watching TV in 10 years. It's been a minimum of 10 years that I've watched TV or watched social media. But I can say this with confidence because, unfortunately, like you said earlier in the show, Michelle, these are cycles. They're not seasons. They're cycles. And this is the whole point of No Love, is so that seasons can be seasons and cycles will be destroyed. Because if we get to a place where we understand love, we know love, we live love, we will speak in context, we will consider in context, and we will teach from our context so that we can all be relatable, we can understand each other, we can appreciate each other. Now that I understand the context of what $74,000 worth of content is, I can appreciate my wife. Now that my daughter knows what the actual mortgage is, the car note is, the insurance is, and all the actual daycare, all that, she considers turning that off the light. She considers what it's going to cost for her bed when she's price shopping or whatever. She considers what is going to, so I don't have to think about that because I'm teaching them directly and indirectly context. Now, let's go to other contexts, people. I tell you, we're going to be uncomfortable. We are going to be uncomfortable. Context. So let's talk about this thing called context. So as African Americans, we are an oppressed bunch of people. The way that it's set up is to cause us to fail. I don't negate any of that. Context. If the people that you are being oppressed by see you and you got red bottom shoes, you driving in nice cars, you got the $150, $250 shoes, you got the latest in technology, you got the latest of what have you, in context, they see you as fine. Based off of they're seeing you. So now the unfortunate thing is, this is the context that we're trying to sell to other people, that we are fine, that we do have it together, we balling out of control, and we doing our thing. So we want these people to believe this lie, Because that look is one car note away from repossession. That look is one COVID-19 away from losing your house, your car, your whatever. That presentation, putting that in the forefront, is getting them to believe something that's not true, and also getting someone else to believe something that is not true. And then you say, I need help. So which one is it? Do we need help with extra, or do we need help with management? And what I say, and what I'll challenge in all this, because this is where my mindset comes from, because people are saying, well, you got your children in there working on financing, about their stocks and everything of that nature. I am. And because of that, because I can debunk things that we have as assumptions as to what would fix things that we claim are a problem. If we look at the actual sports, let's go to sports. We pretty much dominate from African American descent. We pretty much dominate, and we're the majority in most sports. And most sports are paying millions of dollars. So if we're saying that if we get money in our communities, we'll fix our communities, that is a contradiction. Because we got a lot of money in our communities from the standpoint of sports and things of that nature, but yet we're leaving those sports, we're leaving those situations without money, and our communities are not being built up. Oh, we're uncomfortable. I know we're uncomfortable right now, but we're going to talk context. We're going to talk about context, and we're going to talk about truth. And if we deal with the truth, we can fix a lot of things. We can do a whole bunch of marching and all that stuff, but who's going to fund it? My children, I'm working on getting them knowing how to make money before they figure out who they want to be, so that they don't need to be something or do something, so that they can live and miss out on who they're supposed to be. We teach go get a job and go to the people that we claim are oppressing us, because if they're the majority of the business owners and things of that nature, you're saying, treat me fairly, I need fairness or whatever, can I get a job? As opposed to us figuring out how to make money so that we can create a job, and we don't need a job. And then when we start leveraging in our own wealth, we have a voice. But you can't go to the master or the person that is actually providing you provision and say, I have these demands, and think that it's going to work out that way. You don't have leverage. So I'm teaching through love, leverage, love of yourself, love for the people that are in your surroundings, love of everything, so that we can do things that will actually make an impact. Because if we're getting our stimulus checks and we're giving it back to the people that are oppressing us, then we're setting ourselves back up for the same situation, the cycles. So we have to break these cycles. Hold on. A part of love is understanding. Love is strengthened by the willingness of understanding. Context. This is true. So context. Before I go into anything else, because Michelle, you've been writing and you got the most serious no love face I've seen ever in no love history. So go ahead and share your thoughts on this thing called context.
I'm listening and I'm paying attention, and I say that because I'm listening to it from, like you said, from a lot of different perspectives. There's a lot of different people, a lot of different things. And some people are perpetrating fraud and trying to project a perception that isn't truly based in truth to compensate for a sense of lack or a sense of scarcity or a sense of hopelessness, right? So they try to hook on to something that they can control, which may be as simple as my image. And I'm trying to pay attention, because my question that I'm working through is, well, what are we responsible for? All right, so are we responsible for the decisions we make, which make us perpetrate fraud, or are we responsible for how we internalize some of the context within which we live, and maybe misinterpreting right? So abdicating the throne of our life and saying, well, because they did this, I have to do this, right? Is that necessarily a truth? And then I'm listening to it from the perspective of you taking in all of the life experience you had, which I'm sure has touched some of these things, and then saying, well, I'm going to teach my children something different because that's my responsibility to affect change through what I am responsible for and have access to influencing. So there's a lot of I'm thinking. That's the serious face.
Okay, got it. It's just interesting that you said that, like, yeah, experiences. Like, I can give many life experiences. I can give other people's life experiences, but I always look, and this is the challenge is to, for one, consider context. That's the first thing. As I stated in so many different shows, where I look at exchanges as, am I a student here or I'm a teacher? And I prefer to be a student because that way I leave with something. You always you leave with giving when you're the teacher, but you leave with gaining if you are a student. But we prefer to be in the role of, I got it all together, I know, so I'm gonna tell you this, and that's just not me, which allows for me to see a lot of opportunities that other people can't see.
So
because they're not.
One of the things that I struggle with is that life is actually a sum total of a lot of micro decisions. So even in the situation that we are watching unfold before us, it wasn't this lightning bolt that kicked this off. It was a series of small decisions that led up to that this one highlighted and then tipped it over. And same thing in our lives. We are a series of small decisions, and we get to make those decisions when we believe that we can. And I feel like there's a group, a generation, a group whose context has not allowed them to believe or take into consideration that they have the ability to make that small decision. And I think that that's where we have the opportunity as people who are positive and people who are trying to give back and people trying to educate, people trying to empower, to hold that safe place and say, wait, but you have some manifest destiny here. You're not just solely a victim. And even in this situation, this forcing of a conversation is a decision. The decision to engage and do whatever it takes to make the conversation happen. That's a decision too. So I guess I'm hearing this and I'm questioning what do you feel based on context? Because do you feel that people even are aware of context and take responsibility for interpreting context, or are they just letting life happen?
No. All right, so I think people are drifting. They're floating. Mm-hmm. I think it's very rare for people to think. And that sounds very, very harsh. But I think
critical thinking is a lost art. So I'm not arguing. I think critical thinking is a lost art.
They just respond and just haphazardly do things without considering, which is why we respond so quickly. Like I said, I know for sure when I read the mind thing, I know that triggered anger in a lot of people. It didn't move me at all. When the guy asked. Yeah, it's exactly. It's a query. So I have a query that was asked. I'm going to answer the query. That's how I look at it. It is what it is. Until you tell me otherwise, it is what it is. But again, when you come from a place of context, and this is why this is where it gets. When
you come from a place of being able to look at context and evaluate it and take it into consideration. You know what I mean? Well, context is all around, and you can see it or not see it, but it's from taking the initiative to take it, assess it, evaluate it, consider it as you decide what your next move is.
Well, actually, the power is to grow in context, but that's not what we're doing. We're taking limited context, which I don't care who you are, how old you are, your context is limited to your view. So you take limited context and you draw a life decision, you draw a conclusion about just the way of life and everything, or this one person based off of your limited context, as opposed to learning their context and you all figuring out how to move forward or how something loving can come from that. But the problem is, because of our experiences as well as our immature perspectives upon our experiences when we experience them, we draw conclusions that are intentional from a spiritual standpoint to taint our perspective and in our context. So when we are looking at things that way, all right, so I'll put it this way. Love is hidden in context, but so is hate, so is prejudice, so is insecurity, so is every other thing. They're all hidden in there. And when we get hit by the ones that hurt, those always sit out the most. So those are the ones that we kind of make our decisions about life with, because success, there's no teacher in that. There's no teaching in success. There's only teaching in failure and falling. That is the only time that you have a takeaway from something. But unfortunately, we look at that as an actual failure, and we try to shy away from it, when in actuality, that is growth, and that would actually get you closer to success.
Growth and confidence never live together.
Most certainly. So context is necessary to learn from other people, so that you in turn can have a takeaway. I give this example quite often. Context. A common, what's the word I'm looking for? A common stereotype for African Americans is that we don't tip well. Mm-hmm. The common stereotype. So if you, as the waiter, have this stereotype about these people that you're about to serve, and you happen to be opposite or a different race, I'll say Caucasian. So you get a table of black people, in your mind, in your subconscious, whether you say it or admit it, you have in your mind, these people are not going to tip well. Mm-hmm. Your service is going to reflect that. Mm-hmm. It's going to do it, whether it's consciously or subconscious. You are going to serve according to your expectation. Now, if you see a group of Caucasian suited up people, you're going to say these people have money. Do you need more water? Do you need more ice? Do you need more whatever? And your response is going to be based off of that. Now, interestingly enough, if it's a black sports star, or a black
somebody with money that you can
whatever,
tell,
someone that is known, that you know that they have money, I'm pretty sure your service is going to be at a place where it's impeccable, because in your mind, I can get a good tip. So if the stereotype is that black people don't tip well, and you get a table full of black people, whether it's conscious or unconscious, or you are going to serve according to your expectations of your service. It's kind of like the boss is in the room. I'm gonna give you my 100%. I'm going all in or whatever. So I say all that to say, after you give the poor service, you have the black people that probably were going to tip well. That is like, this is some trash service. I can't believe
I'm not tipping.
You never came back and asked me what it is that did I need anything or whatever. And for that, I'm not tipping. So you got two different contexts that have the same experience, and no one fixed anything, because you, unfortunately, which you have a right to do, I didn't have good service, so I'm not tipping well. Mm-hmm. But all you did was validate what he or she felt about you in the first place. So you helped them to treat someone else the same way in the cycle that we talked about earlier. Due to the context, it continues to go. Whereas whether I get good service or bad service, I just give about 20-25%. That's just what I do. I don't care what the experience is. I might have a conversation with somebody, but I'm going to always sit well, because my intent with everything that I do is to kill stereotypes and to at least make you question them. So that is what I meant by the whole context thing. Like, we need to be mindful of context, because if we are mindful of context, we can combat it. We can be chill and learn and grow. I remember when I was a kid, and this was my introduction to context. My introduction to context was Malcolm X. I just could, for the life of me, could not understand how a man could be so angry or hateful when it came to an opposing race. I just did not get it. And I'm like, what in the world? I was raised Muslim. My mom had her ex and everything. So clearly I heard about Malcolm X and everything when I was coming up. But finally, when I got a little older, I read the autobiography of Malcolm X. I had this conversation last night with the programmer from Tennessee, the exact same conversation. So I read the autobiography of Malcolm X, and when he was a kid, while he's in school, they were asked, what do you want to be? He said he wanted to be a lawyer. The lawyer's like, well, niggers can't be lawyers. You can work with your hands or serving or something like that. So that was his first encounter with school. Then his father did the right thing. He got life insurance. Shameless, well, it's not a shameless plug. Please, if you don't have life insurance, get it. Please. It's very inexpensive. And unfortunately, if we're so concerned about us as a race, and when I say us, I'm talking about Black people. Sorry to go off on a tangent. Having life insurance would probably be the best way that we can shift our wealth. Is just to have life insurance, because to have protection for your family in the event that if we're getting picked off, we can at least, maybe that be the best defense strategy in the world. Everybody, every African American gets life insurance and makes it public. Maybe that'll cause people.
No, I don't want to pay them out. I don't want to do that.
Exactly. So, see how my mind works. But no, seriously though, life insurance is so important. Like, please be considerate of people when you leave. Talk about afterlife from a Christian standpoint. There's an afterlife that you're leaving behind that you need to be mindful of to make sure that you're protecting.
Context.
It's very, very inexpensive.
Context.
Even if you just got term life insurance, very inexpensive. But I say all that to say, Malcolm X's father, he had life insurance. He had life insurance, and the way that he was killed was he was tied to a train track, and the train ran over him. And they did not pay him out for his life insurance because they said he committed suicide. When you start getting context of people's life stories, even when it gets down to this racism, that's why I don't get offended by racism. I get curious about the actual upbringing of the person that causes them to have the thought process. That's why I'm willing to have that conversation. Well, what was your childhood like? What made you feel this way? This had to be a learned behavior. Exactly. So when I say all that to say, when I read the autobiography of Malcolm X, I never said that I hate white people, but I did leave the book saying I understand why he did. So when we get to a place, and this is the power of context, when we get to a place where we can say, I don't agree with you, but I understand, and this is what Black people are saying about the whole Black Lives Matter or the protest and things of that nature. All we're asking for you to do is understand, not counter it with all lives matter. If all lives matter, we wouldn't even have the discussion. I had a business meeting, and the guy actually in my respective company, and one of the directors, he asked me a question. He said, well, how do you think we're doing with diversity? I said, I think we're doing okay. How do you feel about how we're doing with diversity? He said, I think we're coming a long way. He said, but my question is, how do you really, how can we really measure whether we're doing well with diversity or not? I said, the way that you measure how well you're doing with diversity is when you don't need a diversity team.
When you don't need to ask the question, then we're doing fine.
But when you, if race and equality was real, there would never be a diversity department. It wouldn't be a need for that. The only reason why there's a diversity department is because there's inequality. That's the only reason why that is created. So when you don't need it is when it's been done correctly. But until we get to a place of equality, we're going to need things like diversity, training, and
sensitivity training, and
just everything. Yeah, sensitivity thing, because we're not considering what we're talking about today. Context. Go ahead, Michelle.
I think that's what I was saying. It's about education and inspiration and being. What are we responsible for? We're responsible to be curious, to be able to have those conversations, and to make decisions based on good information, not just reacting. Because you still, like you said, I got to be responsible and leave something better for my family. I could get caught up in what I can't do, or I could kind of focus on what I can do and mitigating the risk around what I can't do. It's really, it comes down to little decisions. Little decisions ultimately make the big difference. And the little decision takes what you're talking about, which is, let me look at the context of the decision I'm about to make and not make it based solely on emotion, whatever it is, whatever it is.
Yes, and be open to learning other people's context. And I can assure you, when you're open to learning other people's context, guess what they become? Open to learning your context, which is why those conversations that I have with people end up as deep as they do. He ended up saying, you really are a counselor, because I done told you my life story. Talked about, he said, we found our lives so similar. He said, man, I'm from Texas. He said, I've heard the worst things said about Black people and all this. So he said, and some stuff, it slips out. He said, but it's some of it is just a habit. That's how things were, whatever. I said, I get it. I said, I'm not offended by it. I appreciate your honesty. I said, it's the people that are racist behind closed doors that I have a problem with. Said people that are openly racist, I'm perfectly fine with that. And to be perfectly honest with you, if you sat down and talked, and this is about to get uncomfortable for the flip side, because I know us as African Americans got uncomfortable when I started talking about how we do have money coming in through the sports, yet we're not giving it back to the community. So is really money the thing? If we got a big stimulus, is that really going to change our economies? No, our mindsets are. Knowing and understanding money is what's going to change. That's why people can win millions of dollars for lottery and they end up broke within the next 5 years, because money is not the problem. What you think about money is the problem, which is why I'm hard on my kids and we're working on investing. Like you said, small decisions. We're talking about $5 a day that my children are investing in stock per day. If they do that per day within the next 20, 30 years. They do that
just per day that you change the trajectory of their life, because when they get 500, they have the principle.
But it's small. We have our own apps. They're literally putting their stuff in their own things to take care of them for the rest of their lives, so that when they get of age, when they supposedly supposed to go into work, they can either do so or they can live off of what they've been working on for now. Like you said, those small decisions. But again, they're literally learning what money is, how it works, how compound interest works for you or against you. Things of that nature is what we're going over to make those small decisions. Barbara, you put new things are better than the life insurance. I would need you to respond to that with context, because that's either going to make me cry out of sadness or make me laugh because that's a interesting joke, but still cry. But new things are better than the life insurance. I really don't know how to respond to that. Where was I headed? I was talking about, I was saying how we as African Americans felt uncomfortable when I started talking about the whole community, getting money out of our communities. Typically, when we get in our communities, get money in our communities, we leave our communities. So indirectly, we're saying that we have a problem with our communities. So when are we going to get to the place where we're going into our communities to fix our communities?
I think that's what no love is about, making the small decisions in your household to build a stronger unit that collectively builds a stronger community, because it's still about the small decisions. But I think that people get distracted. I'm as a manager, right? So I'm just speaking from my own experience. I think that people get distracted by the shiny penny, by the circumstance, by whatever the pressure is of the moment. And they're valid. I'm not saying they're not valid, but I think that people can get distracted by the pressure and lose focus on their mission or their bigger goal. Because it's like you said, like if I want to wear red bottom shoes and I got a car because I'm trying to make an impression, because it makes me feel good to feel like I at least look like I can go someplace and get treated like I'm going to tip well, right? Then I've missed the whole point of, well, what am I trying to leave for my children so that I'm actually the person that has the money, not looking like the person has it. So it's easy to get distracted, and your small decisions start to be made based on trying to, again, impress somebody else versus your own personal vision, mission for your family, which you have established. And I think that's one of the things that you talk about often is, and I think there's myself included, I had what you intentionally put effort and energy behind will be achieved, right? So I say that because the areas that I definitely invested in my children, they actually achieved. I didn't think about money at that point. So I can't say that my children are super financially well off, but the areas of being self-conscious, of being able to make good decisions, about being able to have transferable skills, about being educated, I believed in that. So I put that in there. So that's what it came out. And you're saying, whatever it is. So I did that, and you're talking about money. Your children are going to reap that benefit, but we all do. It's the power of our words and the power of our small decisions. And I think that we get distracted because of what's going on around us. Like even right now, like we all talk about, if you consume news all day, your whole trajectory of your life's going to change. It's going to change because that's what you're thinking about. But if you take it in context, be knowledgeable enough to be able to maneuver in the world and be respectful and engaged in conversation, but you can't live on junk food. Junk food, but you can't live on something that's not that well balanced. And again, I think we get distracted from the bigger picture. And let me take off my gloves for a second. I think the other white people, they be planning 17 years out. We think two weeks out, and that's why we keep getting duped.
Actually, that is small. A Caucasian.
I think that is a culture.
Business partners, I'm gonna tell you right now, they're thinking generations. You're talking about 17.
That's what I mean, but they think long game and we think short game.
But that's what I'm. But that's my, and this is what I mean, and this is why it's important here. So that's why I'm going hard with my children now, because what's happening is, like you said, small decisions. So with my children, and even with no love, we're doing these small meetings, and we're talking, and we're having these exchanges, and information is changing our thought processes and our actions. So what's happening with my children, I was having this conversation with Tila, is I teach Naja. Naja and Ezra are very, very close. So I always indirectly see what I teach Naja trickle down to Ezra, whether it be how she responds to them or actions, but her actions are formed by what I'm teaching her. And what's happening is Ezra's learning from his big sister what it is that I'm teaching her. But ultimately what's going to happen is the Fairly generations are they're not even thinking about it. We're living a certain way, which is why our habits, in just like we're talking about context, our context is going to be based off of the foundation that we're learning right now, to where we're not even learning it anymore. This is just how we as Fairleys are. This is what the no love movement is supposed to be about. We're learning this stuff right now. You're learning because it's different. It's new. So it's apparent, like your thought process goes against the grain. But as time goes by, that's why I say go back and listen to the shows. I promise you, it's stuff that you in the beginning of the shows it was kind of uncomfortable. Now when you hear it, it's like that's just the way it is, because you've been learning with us. You've been on this journey, and when you hear it from other people, it's like, what are they talking about? And you have a kind of arrogance to you because now you know. But we have a show about that. Don't forget that you didn't know at one point in time, and make sure that people get it. Yeah, be humble. But yes, it is definitely something. But I want to speak to how comfortable I get people with different races or whatever sharing information, because I'm interested in your context. So I'm about to draw some context.
Respect and curiosity.
Yeah, exactly.
People will share because people will talk. It's not like they don't want to share. And if they're racist, they're usually proud of it. To be honest, if they really are. They're like, I am.
It is not. But I'm gonna be honest with you. It's not even. I'm gonna be honest with you. It ain't even half the time. It's not even about. So it started with a racist thing. Okay, dominance, whatever. Now this is where the problem lies. But let me read back. Okay. Miss Barbara said, I meant the mindset tells people. It says getting money out of invest into getting money out, invest into things before we invest into our feet. Okay. So she said, basically she's saying invest in the future. Great. I'm glad. I hope that's what you were thinking. Susie said, white people, you might want to go back to the beginning of the, it wasn't in context of,
yes, it's all about context. We are talking about context.
Yeah, context of putting people in a place, but we're talking about grouping or strategizing. Actually, that's actually what we're talking about. The whole how we look at things and how things are as far as right now, what we're trying to move away from. So when it comes to investing, my business partners who have oftentimes been of Caucasian descent, whether it be billionaires, millionaires, or whatever, they are investing for a future generation. Now, this is where things come, where again, sitting down and listening and having those honest conversations. Both parties, if we were to say black and white right now, both parties are going back and forth with the same problem. And I know and what I mean by that is it's survival. And if you want to get to the having the conversations, it's fear based off of survival. And what I mean by this is, and this is just straight up what's been shared. I'll start with going with the census that I had looked up. It says that the census predicts in 2000 and I think 30 something that the Caucasians will be a minority. 2045, Caucasians will be a minority as opposed to a majority. Right now it's 49%, 13% Black, 24% Hispanic, 3.8 multicultural, 0.9 other. So if a nation was built from dominance, again, we're talking facts, and I'm gonna make everybody feel uncomfortable. So if you're coming in late and you just happen to be
uncomfortable time,
feel uncomfortable. Right. You're going to feel uncomfortable because we're going to talk about truth so that we can have uncomfortable conversations, so we can get to a place of comfort amongst one another. So if a country was built based off of dominance, okay, of a particular race to be exact, and it was built off of slavery and other, and I'm gonna talk about that, and us as African descent people gonna feel uncomfortable before we leave too as well. Just gonna make sure everybody gets a little that toast.
Everybody gets love.
Exactly, that love. Because we're talking about context. So I want us to be mindful of context, because this is where we get to a place where I don't agree, but I understand. So it was built based off of superiority of race through slavery, and wealth was built. And with that, interestingly enough, there came breeding so that we can produce more property, so that we can produce more work, which unfortunately, the African gene is a dominant gene. So upon the mixture, it produced more African American, so to speak, people or whatever, or black people. Let's just make it a solid color, black. So made more black people. So as more and then the freedom and everything came, and more population grew, and then other immigrants came, and that population grew. Slowly, the dominant race slowly loses it being the dominant race, and so if we're intermingling, as they would put it, and that is literally, for lack of a better term, killing off a race, then this is a game of survival. So you're talking about Black Lives Matter, and they're saying white lives matter, and we're trying to preserve and grow our lives. And you can call it prejudice or whatever. I'm able to step out of it and call it survival and say, I don't agree with it, but I understand. But I also know and understand that it was your system that set up that game plan to where it's not working in your favor. So that's unfortunate. But if we get to a place where we look at each other as individuals and there was equality, there wouldn't be an issue of survival of the fittest or the race or the wealthiest or poverty-stricken persons versus rich people. None of that would matter, which is why love is so important. Do you know why it's very rarely any kind of, if you watch the different posts or whatever, those who say all lives matter or I didn't see any color, typically, if you do your research from a contextual standpoint, and this is without me doing research, I'm challenging you. They have a circumstance, whether they were in the military or whatever, where those persons shared the same experience, and that is what caused them to kind of see from a contextual point that this is my brother, or this is my sister, or it's mixed. It's typically mixed. There's some kind of subtle mixture, whether they have a half grandchild or nephew or their son or whatever, and those are the ones that are going hard with all lives matter or this is horrible. And I get it. Again, context, and I can respect your context, and I'm going to share context along the way. Now, back to you, African American people. Remember I told y'all everybody's gonna feel uncomfortable. So let's talk about this whole. We were brought here.
Can I just pause you? Don't lose your thought. But let me just say that what is so cool is when we get offended when we say one color or the other, but it's the same. Like if you say white or black, like just saying black is the same thing as saying white. It's just a connotation.
But that's my whole point of context. That's why when I do gender and everything like that, I show the other side with the same exact problem. I'm doing this intentionally. I'm letting us know that we're all the same. We got the same struggles and everything. You might not see that. Like I literally gave you a straight up line between both parties are about survival right now. Both parties are being killed. It's through your life that you possibly are killing off their party. Just because you're mixing races. I'm telling you, context.
And there's a lot of truth to, and having grown up going to a white school, right? So I was going to 1% 0.0001% of color in my school. That gives me context, right? Just the same as when you see, like you said, in the military or something, you'll find somebody who is white that's been around a lot of black people who have a lot of empathy and they can relate because of the context. The same thing for me. Like I grew up in a space where there was a lot of other. So I have a lot of empathy and context, but that's not everybody's story, but it's a possibility. No.
But that's why we have to be able to teach from our context. And that's the whole point of this show. We have to be able to share our context which comes from being able to effectively communicate. But I didn't lose my thought. So Black people, you about to feel uncomfortable. So we talked about how we got here.
Equal opportunity uncomfortable.
How we got here. They stole us and they shipped us here. That is true. But in any kind of transaction, there's a buyer and there's a seller. And what did not happen is, and I know why, they did not go into Africa bearing arms and snatching people, because that would not have worked. So that means that our people sold our people to other people. So when that transaction happened, and I've done my history, please do yours. Unfortunately, because we got money hungry, we started selling off our own kind. And to take it a step deeper, because me and Tila, we had this conversation and I had this aha moment. I'm pretty sure Tila remember this. We talk about unity and all this stuff. If you go to Africa, we're divided in Africa. That's why we have these tribes, Inca, the Zulu, or whatever. You literally watch Shaka Zulu yourself. The tribes were fighting to gain power over one another.
Power. It's about power.
So I will always speak and I will always think in context before I respond, because it allows for me to love whether your context matches mine or not. But I will always also take responsibility for my thought process and my actions, and whether I feel that I don't like where I'm at right now, to where I can draw out a plan to get out of where I am right now. That's what I will always do. And that plan will never be for someone else to get me out of it. It will never be for someone else to get me out of it. It may be for me to help other people so that us two can help each other get out of it, but it will never be to look for someone to get me out of it. So when we talk about being sold, someone had to sell us. They didn't go in and just take us. Someone sold us. And that someone looked like us. And we even look at the actual roots and all that stuff. It was Black people that was running with the chains to help them get the people to give to them. So, and if you go, because I need us to understand this. And that's what's really unfortunate about people of my race. We really don't have a place. This is probably going to cause me to get emotional. We really don't have a place where we fit. And what I mean by that is, if you go to Africa, they're not going to see you as Black. They're going to see you as American. And they're not going to like you. I'm going to tell you that right now. And I'm talking from experience. When I went to Haiti, they didn't see me as a Black man. They saw me as American. And when they asked me for some money, and I'm like, yo, we just as poor as y'all are, living in this this garage here or whatever. They called us sheesh, which is French for stingy. And they didn't have anything to do with us because we were stingy Americans, because of their context of Americans. We have money. We got money. You just don't want to share. You don't want to help. This is all context. I promise you, if we get this context thing together, we will get together. We will grow together. We will evolve together. We will love together. But we got to be willing to consider people's context, and we got to be good at sharing our context. Let me read these last comments before I go. Let's invest into communication in the relationship, and then within the relationship, we can grow. I agree. That would be context. But that is where your love lacks. That's why he or she doesn't appreciate you. You didn't take the time to literally show them what it is that you're doing. If you show her or him or the whole process of cooking that meal and make him help, or you show her the whole process of fixing or changing that oil or whatever and make her help, she's going to appreciate when you do it. He's going to appreciate when you do it. We don't share the context, and guess what? And based on their context, all they see is that it's done. Just like our kids. I brought it back full circle. All she sees is that the oil was changed and the car runs. All he sees is that the count that I was gone all day. I have my context of work. All she been doing is at home and she ain't doing nothing. She could have at least had a house clean, and that's it. And I can reverse the roles. Guys are saying Lord knows I can say the same thing. The house is just clean. They just get up. My son, my daughter, she talking context. My daughter, I saw her 3 weeks ago. My son had spilled some milk or whatever, and my daughter came in and she was cleaning it up and everything. And I told her after she finished cleaning it up for him, I said, I really, really appreciate you being such a helpful and considerate sister. I said, but from this point forward, what I need for you to do is make him clean it himself and show him how to do it. I said, it's very nice that you're cleaning up for him, but if you show him how to do it and you make him do it himself, two things are going to happen. One, he's going to be more careful because he doesn't want to clean it up anymore. 3, he learns to be responsible. I mean, 2, he learns to be responsible for his actions, as opposed to expecting someone to do something and clean up his mistakes. I said, so again, I really appreciate how kind you are to your brother and how much you love him, but doing it for him all the time is not going to help him. If you want to help him clean it up himself. Context. That gives him context. Otherwise, he's just going to be knocking stuff over. Mommy will get it. Daddy get it. Sister get it. And what you think he going to grow up doing? Expecting some other girl or anybody else to pick up behind him? That's not what we bringing up in this house. Context. Any final remarks?
I'm gonna say this. I'm trying to not like go on for 30 more minutes or whatever. So I'm trying to hold it in.
Wow, we've been going what for? It's only been
not to say that somebody wouldn't want to, but I'm just trying.
No. I'm just saying. I didn't even realize it was 9 o'clock.
You was on the red guard, but you was on the box. You was on the box. With regards to context, and I guess part of what you see in the presentation is the heaviness in the presentation. My facial expression is there's context, there's intellectual understanding of what you're saying. So I'm not understanding, but there's also knowing the effort that it's taking me right now to take the self-discipline to think about what I need to do and overcome what I feel is difficult.
Wow.
It's not that I don't understand.
Wow.
You're tired. You're tired. And you just get tired. And I'm saying this from somebody who clearly has a broad stretch, swath of types of friends. Like I said, I grew up in a white space. So I don't have any problem with that. I don't have a problem with that. But there is it's the unspoken thread that's common to those of us who have a certain color. It doesn't affect us all the same. I'm not saying that it does. Yeah. But having the effort that it's taking.
Listen, I just need to get a plug. Keep talking, I can hear you.
The effort that it's taking to process, reflect, make the right decision, and behave the right way, or what I perceive as the right way, which is to engage and to be positive and to be forward thinking and like you said, considering context. That takes overcoming how I feel. That takes overriding how I feel. That takes having to step back and I'm just doing it, and doing it looks like, let me just be still.
Okay. That's a broad statement for me to answer.
I'm not saying an answer. I don't know if that's an answer. I'm just saying.
No. I mean, it's a broad statement. So the only way that I can respond broadly and hope that anybody that shares the same sentiments and can fill in the blanks, whether that means go rioting, go punch somebody in the face, flip a table, be angry, whatever it is. And this is what I mean. This is exactly what I mean by how we're not thinkers typically. And that's so dangerous to me, that we just respond according to, as you stated, how we feel, because the heart is really, really deceptive. It's not to be trusted, because how we feel versus the logic behind what would be the consequence for us responding to how we feel. When I make my decisions, my today is never talking about right now or later. And that's what makes me seem sometimes callous or cold. But I know I'm thinking about, like, today has been taken care of several weeks, maybe a month or two ago.
Yesterday. Today is the sum total of the actions yesterday.
But I mean, we can say that, but when you know that for sure, I say, okay, say your thought process is to flip a table or get back and kill whomever. Does it change the situation? And that's where my thought process is. That's why I go so hard with no love. This is, as slow as the process seems, it's building momentum, and it will ultimately be change. And the change that is directed at what it is that we are upset about right now. But marching, I'm sorry, not so much. Putting a black screen on your Facebook, not so much. Actually, all right, so check this out. This is what I mean by, like, you're either in or you're not in. Do you know how many inboxes that I get that I don't read? So if you're listening and you send it to me, like, the minute that I see that it's negative or watch this, but what's being commonly sent to me is, hurry up and pass this along before it gets erased. Okay? This is the inbox that I'm getting, a very common, hurry up and pass this along before it gets erased. I just closed my email. I don't even look at it. Again, very I'm sensitive about, I'm protective. Yeah. So, but I say all that to say, again, we're gonna feel uncomfortable. If Facebook won't let you share content that helps your struggle, why do you use it? Facebook literally makes their money because of your eyeballs. The reason why Facebook is $1 billion industry is because it holds and consumes the most eyeballs in any kind of industry at one period of time. If African American people deleted their accounts, and they won't, they can handle the pockets of the people that are preventing you from sharing that media. You can literally create your own media and share it on your own and say, hey, we can all grow and look at what they're doing to us there. But at the same token, what does looking at what other people are doing to you do for you? Does it make you happy, more upset, ruin more of your context, so that when you do interact with a cop that is good, you're going to automatically conclude that he's a certain way? Everybody's responding, speaking, listening to based off of their context. And if you're feeding your context, which is your subconscious, with these thought processes, all you're doing is creating another cycle, because you're just like the person that is serving you at the table. You're going to deliver a certain service to the person that you have created a actual prejudice towards. If you think all cops are jacked up, which is what you're telling yourself by watching that all the time, when you meet a good one, you're going to be jacked up. You're going to be tense. You're going to be frustrated. You're going to be whatever. You already get that when you see a blue or white light right now. So you think watching someone doing something harmful to someone that looks like you is going to help the situation or hurt it? That's how I look at stuff. Is this going to help or not? If it ain't, I'm not investing I cannot get my time back. So that's the only way that I can really respond. Like, I really need us to think about what we're doing. Is it going to help get us closer to where we would prefer things to be? Or is it just, for lack of a better term, a tantrum? You gonna throw a tantrum? Unfortunately, that'll get you a beating. You can throw a tantrum, you can throw stuff, you can burn down buildings or whatever. But then now you gotta, now if you don't have transportation, you gotta go to a further location to eat. That didn't help your situation, that made it worse. And to be perfectly honest with you, as much as they try to, they twist the media to make y'all feel like this is hurting the industries get a come up. The insurance pays for that. I know business too well. I look at stuff from a business. These businesses are not hurting. If their business is set up right, you just gave them a come up. The insurance is gonna pay for it. And that's the thing. Contextually, we're thinking we're hurting people when you helping them. You just help them with their income. Now they don't have to make you buy it. You burn this stuff and they got money insurance for it. Like, you're not helping anything. You're making them laugh at you. And when I say they, it's business people. I deal with them every single day. I am one. You're not hurting them. So it's like, again, like, really consider, is it helping you or hurting you? Is it helping the quote unquote cause or is it hurting it? Because if you're not doing anything, don't send me them daggone emails. You're not doing anything. I'm doing something. I'm literally spending money, time, talent to do something. Do something. That's all I got. But I mean, I'm, again, as I've stated in other shows, I'm not disregarding how you feel. Not even saying that what you're feeling is incorrect. But if you have a problem with something, I would really focus on changing it. Mm-hmm. That's where I would put my energy on. I definitely wouldn't blame anybody for it, because when you blame somebody for it, you literally have snatched your ability to change it away from yourself, because you think it's not until they do it that it can be fixed, which gives them the power. And I pray to God, y'all don't think that the people that are oppressing you or quote unquote oppressing you are the ones that's going to help you. Because if that's your logic, we got more work to do than I thought. So
I think that's what I meant by what we are responsible for. Like, the feelings I'm having are making me think more about how to mobilize my energy and my efforts and my resources to move into like a solution space, right? So, and I'm very, very fortunate to be able to be somebody that encourages and supports and motivates. And so, like, it's the pause part, it's the pause part. Like, you have the ability, and it's through experience, to be able to bounce back and move faster. So, like, you know what I mean? Like, as you build your muscle, it bounces back faster. And because of the way you think, you're able to bounce back from any outside influences. And there's a process of learning to get there. Mm-hmm. And 90% of the space I'm in, I'm cool with that. And then there are some things that tend to take me back, and so you just had to pause. I have learned to pause rather than react. That's good. Yeah, I have learned to pause before I react. I've had parents, because I do mentoring, and I've had parents that I tell them right now, like, especially role models, when they come into the whole mentoring space, and tell them, first of all, when you're mentoring, the worst thing you can do is expect the harvest. Be mindful of you, whatever your age is. I don't care how old you are at this point in time, you're still saying, wow, this is what mom meant when she said this. This is what grandma meant when she said or did that. So be mindful that you are still learning from stuff that was planted in you years ago, okay?
and keep that in mind when you're pouring into these young men. I said, but what I tell parents is, this might even sound harsh, but is the reality. If I can get your son to stop and think for 3 seconds that, oh, this is wrong, before they do the wrong, I feel like I've won. Because prior to them coming to me, they just did it. So I've at least planted a seed that allows for them to consider what they're doing before they start doing what they're doing. So it's a process. It's a process. But the thing is, and what keeps me going is, I understand how processes work. And if you start a process, it becomes a habit. And as I stated earlier, it's going to end up being my children and our lifestyle, because we came into this learning as opposed to this being the way it is. So we're changing the dynamics of the generations to come by the habits and the lifestyle that we're building right now. So that's it. I love y'all. I can't stress that enough. I hope, depending on the race, if you stomached it long enough to hear that I don't have a biased bone in my body. I just don't. I call it. I see things for what they are. I'm willing to respect your views, your thought processes without judgment, and love you regardless as to whether I agree with your thought process or not. And even take that journey with you to where I can empathize with your circumstance. So I hope that we get to a place where we consider our context and make sure that we teach it and share it so that others can appreciate our context. That's where our lack of appreciation comes from. We don't have our partners participating in what we're doing, so they don't think what we're doing is much. So that is why you're getting the lack of response that you're getting, because they don't know what it is that you're doing. So instead of complaining about what you're doing, make sure that they participate in what you're doing so that they can appreciate that 70-something thousand worth of bills that they're putting into to the building. Talking about my wife. Tila said, we appreciate your mind and time you put into no. Thank you. Don't be making me say my conclusion statements twice. I appreciate you. Love you too, Tila. But with all that being said, I've held you all long enough, hopefully long enough to make up for missing last week. I didn't really, honestly, I had a format with no format. That was a format. I just wanted to talk. And as things came to my mind that aligned with what I'm talking about, I shared, and I really, really hope and pray that this kind of helps with what's going on right now, because we need some context. We need these discussions. But at the same token, I think I've earned enough trust for you all to consider what people are already thinking, so that if they do have those conversations, they don't throw you all too bad to where you can't listen for a little more detail, so we can all grow in context together. Until we meet again, I love y'all. Y'all be safe. Take care. And have a good one. Peace.